Okay. So this week we will continue to work on the chapter 5, and we will starting at 5.7 virtual private networks VPNs. Why we need to today discuss why we need them and what are they. So from the name you probably already figure out if it's virtual private networks. That's something that helps us to implement private networks virtually. It's one of the really important security measures when you transmitting data over the internet. So why do we need VPNs? There are a few types of VPNs that we can talk about today. One is host-to-host VPNs, when you connecting sending data from one host to another host. And this data, you have to understand, will not be transmitted directly from your host to another host, even if you're sitting next to each other. You will use network, and most likely you will use internet, wide area network, or it can be even wireless. So you need to create a protected tunnel between you and second host that will be protected by encryption and authentication, so you can securely transmit and receive information between these two hosts. Another type of VPNs that often implemented in large organizations, and by the way, if you have a VPN installed on your computer, like NordVPN as example, you have basic host-to-host VPN. What is site-to-site VPN? When we have large organization that has hardware implemented VPN at the entry point to the organization network, and another organization has the same implemented network. So these two organizations need to communicate and transmit data between themselves. And just like in host to host, they have this secure tunnel that allows them to transmit this data. When data arrives from one end to another end, it will be decrypted with the key that only organization at the other end has. So anyone who will capture these packets in the middle of this VPN, they will not be able to read or see them because encapsulated packets are encrypted with the advanced encryption. Uh, Another what you could hear is remote access VPN. We're all working right now remotely. And with that saying, when we need to access our organization internal network and resources on the servers in our organizations, we don't want to access it without a level of protection and security. So we would use remote access VPN. Basically, we're establishing connection to this remote site that protected by encryption. And we can work with this remote. Basically, it's you can see this at the host to the site. So we had host to host, like computer to computer, basically site to site when you organize between two organizations tunnel, and remote VPN is basically from host to the site. So when we talk about VPN protocols, well, you can often hear IPsec and SSL. Let's start with SSL because it's the easiest one to understand. Well, is not right, is not easiest the one to understand. Actually, we're gonna spend quite some time in the future, in a couple weeks from now, discussing just SSL and certification. But for this specific topic, SSL would be the easiest because SSL is type of protection encryption that uses certificates to authenticate you and to um, encrypt your data. And with this layer of security, you can still use your web browser. So that's a point of comfortability for anyone to use SSL because it's part of HTTP. So, as a matter of fact, for 443 port is HTTPS. That basically means HTTP over SSL. Now, here's a little trick, and you will not hear about this in test out. That's why I'm trying to mention this right now. Um, we no longer use SSL. And if you even hear SSL encryption, by SSL encryption, they mean TLS. Again, in the future, we will discuss the difference and why we don't use SSL anymore, but that's what you need to know right now. We say SSL, but we mean it's TLS. IPsec. So IPsec, it's like a package of protocols. It's two different protocols in it. Let me just my bad. I forgot the name of this protocol. Brain fart. Okay, I have to check my notes quickly. My
Senior moment.
Okay, well, authentication header is easy. The other one was encapsulating security payload, which is ESP. So I forgot completely what is ESP stands for, and that's another problem with security. When you're preparing yourself for the exam, please make sure you memorize all the acronyms because sometimes it just drives you nuts. Like you will see question, like one sentence question with about 5 acronyms in them, and that was like, what? Especially like person like me with dyslexia, sometimes it's even like more confusing. So the first protocol is authentication header, or you will see it stated as AH. It's easy. Basically, this protocol provides authentication. So we know that you are who you are, and receiver, like between you and receiver, it's established this or let's just say not receiver, between you and another end of the tunnel. It's establishing trust. So it's basically based on trust. And it does not authenticate you with the login and password. It has its own authentication method, basically by secure key. But secure encapsulating security protocol, that's what exactly provides you level of security by encapsulating packets of your data with encryption. So basically what it does, it takes entire packet with the header, with the IP addresses, with everything. It applies the encryption on it and gives it new header that is not encrypted. So what happens if man in the middle captures all these packets? He will get gibberish, and he will not be able to translate this gibberish because basically decrypt them, because the asymmetrical keys, well, actually you have symmetrical keys, but the problem, not the problem, it's one of the things we need to talk in the future, but we're going to start talking today so you would understand how it works. So asymmetrical encryption is extremely slow, and transmit data with asymmetric encryption would be taking a lot of time. So you will have to still have symmetric encryption. With symmetric encryption that is fast, you have another problem. You have to both have the same key. And if you will pass the same key to your opponent with the same channel, there is high chance that someone in the middle will take this key and will decrypt your messages, right? So they use asymmetric encryption to send this key to another end of this channel, and it happens during authentication. And now both of you have the same keys, and if you have man in the middle, he would not be able to get this key. So when you're sending your packets on the other end of the tunnel, you get a receiver with the key for this encryption to decrypt these packets easily. So again, that's something that will require us to talk a little bit more in the future. It's just basic explanation how it works. But yes, IPsec requires a little bit more than just that. So how VPNs work? There is two different type of tunneling. It's a split tunnel and full tunnel. With full tunnel is easy. So basically, you have a tunnel from point A to point B that you are sending all your traffic back and forth, and it's all security protected. The problem is tunnel has its own capacity, so the communication becomes quite slow. That's why you probably want to implement split tunnel. And split tunnel has two different versions, and one of them called inverse split tunnel. So with split tunnel, you're splitting your tunnel for the protected data and for the data that doesn't need to be protected. So it's just basic explanation. So with regular split tunnel, all your data except some, I'm not wrong. With regular split tunnel, actually all your data goes through the unencrypted network except some of the data. So some of the data that need to be secured in settings will be set to be sent through the VPN. And inverse, on the opposite, like everything goes through the tunnel except some of the data that is not important. So for example, all emails would go through the tunnel because you don't want this communication to be captured by adversary, but your internet browsing doesn't have to go through the tunnel. Just as easy as that. And next topic to talk about is going to be web threat protections. So when you and your employees in the organization do web browsing, you need to make sure you're protecting organization and employees from different threats that coming from the web. So basically, if you have access to the internet, you're open to any of those threats. And web filter, remember we talk about proxy that tells you what websites or what resources on the web can be accessed by employees, what it's not, and it will be monitoring entire traffic, what websites actually employees accessing on the internet. Web filter helps you to filtrate, helps you to assign or implement whitelisting and blacklisting. And give me 1 second, I need to check on my kid. So with web filtering, we're implementing whitelisting and blacklisting. Whitelisting when we just tell to our filter what traffic is, and my kid is screaming again. So whitelisting, basically you telling to your web filter what resources can be accessed. The rest is not. So basically, you can say from this organization, employees from computers, they can access online A, B, and C websites. The rest of the resources will not be available. With blacklisting, you basically tell to the web filter that everything on the web can be accessed, but this should be blocked, this should be blocked, and this should be blocked. And that's how it protects your organization from employees going to the websites they're not supposed to visit during their work time. Uh, web threat filter, spam filter, and anti-phishing software.
How would
That,
that be configured?
I'm sorry?
How does how does an organization configure a whitelist? Is that done at like at the like at a DNS server level? I mean, where are they putting those whitelists or
They
blacklists?
basically writing rules, and sometimes it's hardware device that they call it web filter.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
So an actual hardware
yes,
device.
in larger organizations, there are many hardware devices like this one. For example, you can research Palo Alto. That's what I'm actually taking classes myself right now to learn about Palo Alto devices and their security measurements and implementations. So they have like basically like a computer that you place at the entry point of your network that provides you with VPN, proxy, well, pretty much everything.
Okay.
So it's just very generalized, but that's what you have to understand. Like sometimes it's software, sometimes it's hardware, but usually it's very complex server that has all of this, like all in ones.
Okay.
Can you also do it through like Azure, Microsoft?
Through
Because
the
I know,
Azure, well,
like through the filters, through
it's online, it's in the cloud, they have their own protection. I mean, what do you have to understand about Azure? It's like any other cloud, it's just a bunch of servers on the side of Microsoft. So
right. But what I meant was like in their list of like commands and stuff. Wouldn't you like whitelist or
if
blacklist
you
through
large organization,
company?
if you large organization that tries to protect your internal network, you would not use cloud for that purpose. So it's got to be on the site. So WebThreat, spam filter, anti-phishing software. Well, how it works, like CSN has it, and probably many of you still receiving spam and phishing attempt emails on CSN email. So basically, this protection algorithm was supposed to capture the spam emails or phishing emails. But as I talked to security people, actually, I was talking to what's his name? The person who does security, provide security for CSM, and he said that if email doesn't have any links, it will go through this protection as just regular email with no problem at all and will not be able to capture. And what happened last year, around the same time as now, uh, students started receiving phishing emails with job offer. Somebody was telling that they need dog walker, who will be walking their dogs while they're out of town, and they offered like tremendous amount of money for walking dogs, and there was no links at all, and they said that um, you can contact basically write me email to this email, or um, I can be contacted by this phone number, something like offsite, something did not require student to click on the link basically.
Yeah, I had happened to me with a personal assistant.
Okay, personal assistance is same schema, same
Yeah.
phishing schema. So yeah, make sure you don't reply to those and don't try to contact these people because they are spammers. Not just spammers, they
I did for fun.
you did.
For fun. It was a fun time. It
Okay,
was through the phone though.
okay.
It was definitely worth it to mess with them.
Well, you just wasted time of this guys. So I mean, this anti-phishing software, sometimes it works, sometimes it's not. Like you still have to rely more on users. That's why user training is probably the most important part of all this web protection um, schema. So besides that, network access protection. So network access protection is more than just one device, or it's like entire algorithm that requires few layers of protection. Before, basically, I'm gonna explain quickly how it works. So you're trying to join the network, and the server needs to verify that you. Sorry, I got distracted by my phone. That you, your host, that trying to join the network can be trusted, and it can be not trusted by several reasons. Maybe you don't have important updates on your computer, maybe security updates. Maybe you have no patches. Maybe you have no antivirus. So it will run basically scan on your computer, and it's provided through the DHCP. Like when you're trying to access network, you need to receive IP address within this network, and this actually type of network protection is not efficient. It's okay for the smaller networks, I guess, but when it's large organization level, they have like server that running this all authorization process for you to access the network. So it's called enforcement server. And if this enforcement server sees that you are not qualified to join network because you will create vulnerability for this network, it will send you to redirect you to remediation server. And with remediation server, you will have to go through the update and patching. Then you will be allowed to join the network. So, an example of CSN, do you think we have this technology? Yes, we do. How it works? Um, if any of you join CSN network with your own devices, you probably noticed that you can join wireless network only with your student credentials. So that's how your personal computer gets checked every time you join the network. So you have to go through the notification, and that's when you get your authentication. That's when your computer gets checked. So I'll tell you for sure, like if your computer completely disqualified from joining the network, the only difference that how large is the gap between qualification? Like, what are rules assigned? So if you have not updated or patched computer, maybe they will let you to join the network on CSN. But some organizations that they have higher security level, even small, for example, not updated databases of viruses on your antivirus will not let you in. So you have to just understand the difference between organizations and what type of levels of security they have. Now, we close to the wireless security. So with wireless security, you have to understand anything that transmitted over the air can be easily captured, can be easily translated, and any information that over the air, it's basically like floating in the air with radio waves, can be used by adversaries.
What
So remember we talk about data elimination, and I told you that when we talk this about wires, is not as scary as wireless. So if you don't have protection on your wireless device, wireless communication, that's where it's scary.
when an organization like CSN is looking at your computer when you're trying to connect,
Mm-hmm.
what are they looking at? For instance, if I have a machine running a virtual machine and I connect to the network using my virtual machine,
Mm-hmm.
is that the computer that they see, or do they see my actual bare metal machine?
No,
And
they have pretty basic scanning.
okay, so they would only see the virtual
As a
machine.
matter of fact, I had this issue last semester. I didn't know about this. Um, not the spring, fall, last fall. I had Kali Linux on my machine, on a virtual appliance, and I tried to use it on the network. It triggered all kind of alarms in their system, and I got call and like, what's going on there? And then apparently they told me I cannot use Kali Linux if I'm not in Faraday cage room.
Gotcha.
And we have at CSN Faraday cage room. It's one of the good. We talk about the Faraday cage. We're jumping a little bit ahead from where we are right now. But since I started, and my brain sometimes jumping places, we have to finish it. So Faraday cage is some sort of protection on the perimeter that does not allow any wireless radio waves to go to outside of this perimeter. Same, nothing from outside cannot go inside. So with this Faraday cage room classroom, it has its own wired network specifically inside of this room, and you cannot connect this network from outside this room, and you cannot connect like a general, let's just say, guest network when you're inside of this room. So you cannot go to Wi-Fi. I mean, you still can use Wi-Fi. And Tracy, you were at Cyber Club last year. You remember this Faraday cage, right? When we had to like log in with different login and password inside of the room because we were not logging into actual CSN network. It was like internal network protected by this Faraday cage.
Yeah, I had a couple of classes in that, in the Faraday classroom,
Yes. So
forensics classes.
yes, that's what we often should do. We should have forensics classes in the Faraday cage room. If we decide to use Kali Linux on the regular network, because I was teaching my security classes in Cheyenne campus, and I was teaching them in the regular room, and I told them to install Kali on computers. It was disaster. So yes, it will trigger. But again, if you're using just your base host network, or like for example, you're using your Linux Ubuntu, it will not trigger any alarms on the campus. Uh, let's little bit talk about wireless. So what we have wireless access point that gives us this access to the network resources. At home, wireless access point is going to be a 3-in-1 device, which is going to be our router, our switch, our modem. So it will be connected by wire to the wall, and it will give us all these opportunities to run wireless all devices pretty much in home right now. But when we're talking about larger organization, it's usually never like all-in-one devices. It's all separate devices that you need to configure separately, and that's why we have network security in CSN as very separate, specific um, type of education, because it requires you a lot of skills and knowledge just to configure security on all of those devices. So your major in network security will specifically guide you how to protect network of your organization, because there is, as I like to say, there is many opportunities in cybersecurity, and network security is one. Web application security is another one. And this security plus is just starting point, because that's where you're learning basics of everything. So, and I just mentioned two, but I'm like forensics, the third one. And in forensics, there are many fields as well. For example, mobile forensics or computer forensics, it's two different fields. So, what this wireless access point has? It has antennas, and sometimes you don't have visible antennas, but it still has antenna inside. And uh, usually, this antenna is omnidirectional. That means it's spreading radio waves all around this device in the radius, and anyone around this device in a particular radius can capture this data packets that's floating there. And that's very unprofessional terms, but that's what the data does when it's transmitted by radio waves. It's just floating in the air. And when you're trying to implement level of security, you want to limit this radio waves within your building. You want to place your wireless access points somewhere in the middle of the building to make sure you don't have this data emission from outside walls of your building. Um, let's talk about security of data that's transmitted. So back in the days, uh, wireless communication used to be protected by WEP, wired equivalent privacy. And that type of protection should no longer be used. It's been replaced with WPA and WPA2. And actually, WPA2 is something that we should assign right now on our protection level when we're setting up our own home network or when we work with organization. And WPA2 enterprise specifically for big organizations. So if you still see WEP exists somewhere on the network, this level of encryption can be easily broken. Basically, it transmits like partially not encrypted. It's partially clear text. So if you capture enough packets, you can reassemble like entire data, and you can crack the part of that encrypted because the encryption key never changes. So basically, this encryption key was assigned at the beginning, and if it's not changed manually every time, it's just not changing. So it will. I think on test out they say it's like in a matter of minutes to break this key, so you can understand how unsecure it is. So when you are trying to implement encryption on your own wireless network, you would choose WPA2 uh, EAS encryption. And what else about the wireless access point? When you're setting up security, you have to set up MAC address filtering. And MAC address filtering is not like one of the best protections, but it's something that can be implemented easily in a smaller network. And why I say smaller? Because when you have large organization, you physically cannot uh, assign all the MAC addresses of existing devices on your network to filter by the MAC address. But when you know that you have your all your devices basically on the network at home, and you know all their MAC addresses, you can say that you want to see on your wireless network only these devices. So if some other device will try even to join your network, they will not be able because MAC filtering will not allow that to happen. But always remember, if somebody really dedicated to get into your network, they know how to spoof MAC address. So how secure it is? It's pretty secure because usually nobody wants to get into a small home wireless network. It's just not really efficient way of hacking. It's probably some script kiddie who is practicing hacking into wireless networks, but if you have all layers of protection of your own data, you should not be worried about this much. So if you have this MAC filtering as in your home network, perfect. You already add one more layer of security to your home network. Uh, SSD broadcasting. So, A, you should never leave your SSD, and SSD is basically name of your wireless network, the same as it came with your device. So never you leave manufactured name and password. It always needs to be changed to something original. One more layer of security that usually you advise your customers if you will be working as an entrepreneur, just disable broadcasting of SSID. So no one will see your SSID when they click on the bottom, like all available wireless networks. You probably notice sometimes you see all your neighbors, and now it's everybody's competing who is more original with the name for their wireless network. But you would be even more original if you will not broadcast and nobody will see your network on this list. Few more things about wireless. Uh, Wi-Fi is not the only wireless that needs to be protected. Let's think about what else can provide us wireless communication and needs to be protected. I'm going to show you a phone that's got
Cameras.
wireless cameras usually operate on Wi-Fi or I'm giving you a hint here, or Bluetooth. And Bluetooth is extremely not secure. And Bluetooth also sends and receives packets that can be captured as easy with Wireshark as Wi-Fi communication. So you need to make sure that you have level of protection for your Bluetooth. There is some wireless communication that have inbuilt security like NFC in your cards or NFC in your phone. So that's something you need to consider too. Like Wi-Fi is not the only thing that needs to be protected. Uh,
What about like radio frequencies for like cars, like the fob keys and stuff?
good question. It's actually one of favorite hacks, and if next summer you will, I'm sorry, I'm opening a chat right now because I see somebody sent message.
Just talking about what you were talking about.
Oh, okay. So they insecure. They absolutely not secure. They can be easily copied, and it's shockingly that you still need to figure out your own way to protect yourself from being hacked such a weird way. So make sure you have your credit cards in a wallet that protects your cards from being scanned. If you can have key fobs, make sure you also keep them somewhere where they cannot be scanned easily. Or the card. Uh, if you go next summer to DEF CON, and I would highly suggest you save money right now to go to the DEF CON next year because I strongly believe that every cybersecurity student should go. You will receive new experience. You will learn so much that you don't even expect to learn. And you can go to all those villages, they call villages, where they will teach you how to hack wireless, how to hack web applications, how to hack pretty much anything. So it's gonna be around $300 for admission only, but make sure you have this money next summer. I'm telling you, it's gonna be at the beginning of August for 4 days, and if you will go there, that's not gonna be money wasted. You will
By the way,
learn.
they only accept cash.
They only accept cash. That's absolutely true, and they only accept cash everywhere, like literally everywhere. So I'm gonna mention right now some types of attacks, and we have about 10 more minutes. Actually, maybe even less because I need to log in my student, my little student, to his teacher's web remote communication. And de-authentication attack. So you're on your network with your authentication, with your login and password, and hackers will try to de-authenticate you to take your place there with spoofed address, of course. Rogue access point. As example, you were using your neighbor's Wi-Fi. Happened, right? And some, and you thought it's sort of protected. Why not? Which is, if you could join it without password, means there's no protection at all. And someday you joined the network with exactly the same name, but it was not your neighbor's network. There are many other rogue access point scenarios. It's just one of the simple scenarios that I always like to bring. So you should never do that. You should never join any unknown Wi-Fi, especially if it does not require any authentication, because then your data becomes their data. Word driving, it's when it doesn't really exist anymore as much as it used to be when Wi-Fi was not so common thing. So people would drive in the car, and if they see Wi-Fi signal, they can try to access this free Wi-Fi. Packet sniffing. Basically, we already talked about this. We can use our Wireshark to capture anything on the wireless network. And technically, it is not an attack, but it still is, especially if you're packet sniffing for something specific. Uh, One of the old terms you can hear, it's actually on test out, it's word chalking, but again, I don't think it's exists. It's something similar to, it's something that comes together with word driving. Um, when people who are searching for Wi-Fi networks would find a good Wi-Fi access point with no encryption, no protection, they would mark with the chalk this place, so other people who searching would already know, oh, that's a good place to land.
What the hell?
What's going on?
I didn't even know that existed. That's funny.
Well, you will see the mark. For example, I would be driving on the street and I see that somebody has a Wi-Fi that is not encrypted and does not require authentication, right? So I can just make a mark, like on the ground or on the building, some sort of sign that will tell others who know about this site that here you can use free Wi-Fi, and as much as you want to use their Wi-Fi, you can also take all their data. RFID attack, that's something we actually just talk about, that your RFID devices can be easily scanned and duplicated. And what else? Okay, a rogue point. When we're talking about rogue point, sometimes can be specifically implemented with devices that designed for it, such as Pineapple. So when you think you accessing like legit Wi-Fi, not your neighbors, but actual legit Wi-Fi, uh, you
Like this?
actually accessing this. Yes, this one. So yeah, so that will help you to implement a rogue access point. I think I mentioned everything that related to the attacks on the Wi-Fi. And you always have to remember Wi-Fi with all layers of protection still has vulnerabilities. So, and someone who can exploit those vulnerabilities will be able to access your Wi-Fi. So, especially at home, especially if you will be working remotely, you have to be concerned about security settings on your wireless device. I'm going to stop recording right now. It's almost 11 o'clock. I need to get my kid on the